Morning guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School. What I want to do today is I want to show you how to do a simple at-home project you can do in your garage, on your back porch, whatever the case may be, to make a very simple takedown bucksaw. And this is probably the most stable design for a takedown bucksaw that I've ever seen. It uses a little bit heavier material as far as the size and diameter than what I've seen in the past, but it doesn't take a whole lot of carving to get this done, and it's probably the most stable design that I've ever seen for a bucksaw. It holds together really well. It'll cut wood for you really good. It'll last you for years as long as you oil it and take care of it, and it's very cost effective. So we're going to talk about making this today. We can do this in about 20-25 minutes very easily, and it's very cost effective. The most expensive part of this whole thing are the blades. These Bucksaw blades are fairly expensive, but they're expensive for a reason. They're good blades. You're going to have about 10 bucks in a blade. So if you get both of these blades, you're going to have about 20 bucks just in the blades. But the material to make the saw is going to cost you way less than $5. So real quick, let's discuss materials. You're going to need a 2x2. And if this is about 4 feet long, you're not going to need this much. This is a piece of 1x2 furring strip. This is probably 2 foot long. You're not going to need this much. Your longest expanse is going to be as long as your blade is, or a little bit shorter than your blade, which in this case we're using 21-inch blades. You can find this material in scrap at any construction site that's building a house and pick it up for free. We're going to need some paracord, and we're going to need some simple tools. Alright, if you don't have a saw to go by to make a pattern off of, then you just need to kind of guesstimate how long you want these uprights to be. These particular uprights on this saw, and it works very well, are about 15 inches. Good standard easy measurement. So we're going to need 2 of those 2x2s that are 15 inches long. So we'll just take our 2x2, we'll cut 2 15-inch pieces off of it with our dovetail saw or a crosscut saw. We could use either one. We'll get those cut first, and then we'll move on. Okay, once we have those 2 pieces cut, we need our centerpiece cut. Our centerpiece is going to be about 1 inch shorter than our blade because we want this thing to pull in a little bit this direction. So we're going to make it 1 inch shorter than our blade. Our blades are about 21 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and make this 20 inches. So we'll cut that 20-inch piece. Now we want this cross piece to be about halfway up our uprights. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure that off. We know they're 15 inches, so 7.5 is going to be our center line. We want to decide which is going to be the top and which is going to be the bottom. This has got knots in it, but all I have to do is make a slit here for the blade and a hole. This has got a knot right at the top, so that's going to affect my slit, but it won't affect anything at the top, so I'm going to put this as my bottom. And I'm going to mark this at 7.5, and just so that I remember where things are at, I'm going to write on this bottom, on this end. That's just going to help me later maybe remember. Sometimes I forget things, so it's easier to write it down. This one's a clear piece of lumber all the way around. Doesn't really matter on this one which is the top and which is the bottom. I'll mark it at 7.5. Okay, now we get into the only tricky part of this if we're using hand tools to do this stuff with, and that is a Mortise Tenon joint. And what that means is we're going to have a male on this end and a female on this end and plug one into the other. Very simple terms. So what we need to do is we need to decide how big we want the male end, and we're going to put the male ends on this cross piece. So if we look at how wide this piece is, it's 1.5 inches, so 3/4 is the center line of that. So if we make a mark at 3/4, we know where our center line is. Then if we go about 1/4 inch in on this side and 1/4 inch on this side, that's going to be how wide our male end is going to be, right across here. Then we need to decide how deep we want it to go inside here. And we could use hand chisels and hand drills to do everything, or we could use electric. It depends on what we want to do. But I don't want to make this real deep. I'm going to make it about the thickness of this tape measure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my tape measure and line it up across here like this, with this folding ruler, and put it down to there. And then I'm just going to hand mark that down like this. Just like this. And I'm going to cut off this and this with my dovetail saw. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace this line around on the sides of this, because I'm going to have to make saw cuts there as well. And I want to know where those cuts are supposed to be. Then I'm going to take this piece of wood and I'm going to clamp it into a vise down close to where those cuts are going to be, just like this. Get that thing as straight up and down as I can get it, plumb as I can get it, and in there tight. And that's where I'm going to take my dovetail saw and make my cuts here and here. Then we'll turn the piece and cut the sides. We want to cut right down to that line, just like that. And then we'll do the same thing on this other side. Again, we want to get that thing in there pretty straight so we know we're making a nice straight cut. And follow our line that we made here, which should be about even. Like that. Then we'll cut the other side off. And we could do this with a multi-tool saw if we had to do it that way. Alright, so now we need to reduce the width or the thickness of this just a little bit. And to do that, we're just going to come in here with our dovetail saw again and cut down in here just a little ways. And I'm eyeballing this portion of it. But I just want to remove a little bit of material to make this a little bit thinner, so that I don't have to take as much material off the leg to put a hole in here, so that I can avoid side to side stress that might split this thing out. Take a wood chisel and just pop that off there like I was batoning it with a knife. So I'm just going to put this on here straight above that cut, hammer down and split that right off. Like that. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Just like that. And that's going to give me that joint right there that's going to fit inside of here. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Now once you have cut that in there, you can do one of two things. You can measure it and square that up, or you can just put it over the top of it like this and eyeball it to the center and basically just draw it on there just like this. And then just fill it in freehand. So we're going to have to cut a square hole in here, or a rectangle hole in here, just like this deep, for this to fit inside of. Alright, once we've got our square drawn on there, we need to figure out how we're going to cut that hole. And we're going to use a couple different tools to do that. First of all, we're going to use a bit and brace. And this bit that I've chosen is about the same width as this, and about half of it's about the same height and about half the width. I think I said that right. So we're going to go on each side of this center line, and we're going to drill down in here till we get it about the depth we want. What we could do is we could put a piece of tape on this bit so we know exactly where we need to go with it. Alright, so once we've got that initial hole cut in there, we're going to do a lot of work with the chisel now. So we're going to take a chisel here. We're going to come in here right beside that and cut that in. Try to straighten those sides out a little bit. Just like that. And I'm just taking it in little pieces and prying them out. Not going any deeper than I already was. Just like that. Okay, so that gives us a nice tight fit right there. And it fits the same way on the other side. So now we just need to repeat this hole on our other piece. Okay, so that's the most difficult part of the puzzle, is those two joints. The rest of it's pretty simple. Now what we're going to do is we know this is our bottom, and we know that the blade's going to sit across this way. So we're going to take these two pieces and we're going to center cut them on the bottom here, deep enough that we can get our blade in and a nail in the side. So we'll get that lined up in the center. We'll get a center line, a cut line here, like that. And we want to make sure that that line's pretty straight. And then we'll take our dovetail saw and we're going to cut right on one side of that line, just like this, toward the center. And we're going to come down. Again, we can use our device for measuring here, and we're just going to go down a little bit deeper, I think, this time than the width of this, because our blade is a little bit wider than that. You want to keep this cut nice and straight. We can pretty much lay our blade in there and see how deep we need to go, because we got to remember, we have to have a nail in here to hold this blade in place. So if we slide this blade in at that depth, do we have room for a nail hole? Absolutely. So we only need to go as deep as that tape measure is wide in here, and we'll be fine. And that's just about right in the middle. So we can lay this blade on the side here, like this, to judge where we need our hole at. I'm going to drop down just a little bit, and I'm going to use the first hole on this. So I'm going to scoot over here this way and put my mark right here for my nail hole. That's where my nail is going to go through. Now we have to do the same thing on the other piece. Okay, so now all we need to do is we need to drill a hole through here, a hole through here, and then we need to take this piece here, and it's just rough right now. We can shape it later. And we need to drill 2 holes here, just a little ways down in the center, and we can eyeball that just fine. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to use a bit and brace again with a different size bit to drill these holes. And these holes here, all 4 of these will be the same size. And they just need to be big enough for the nails to go through and for a piece of paracord to go through. Okay, we now have a functional bow saw. We just need to cut our paracord to length and put it together. I've got the nails in my pocket here, and now it's just a matter of fancying it up the way you want to. So I'm going to show you real quick how this goes together. It's a very simple process. First of all, let's melt the end of this paracord. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our nail. We're going to set our pieces here, just like this. Now it becomes about like a Lincoln log set. Just like this. And we take our blade and slide it in. You're going to have a little bit of saw kerf in there probably to deal with that you'll have to get out of your way, or drill material that you'll have to get out of your way. Just push the blade in there and that'll get it out of your way, just like that. And after you put that blade in there a few times, that'll all be gone. But push that through until you find the hole, and push that nail into the hole. Just like that. And then the same thing on this other side. Drop that through, just like that. Now, at that point you put this in the middle, just like this. Now the whole precedence of this thing is that you're going to put tension up here to push against this mortise and tenon joint you have here, which is going to spread the thing out. This is where this paddle comes in with the two holes in the paracord. So you'll just take your paracord and you'll run it through here just like this. Is the easiest way to do it. Give yourself enough paracord that you can wrap around both sides of this, here and here. Let's just lay this on the top for a minute. And give yourself just a little bit of overlap there to tie your knot in. Doesn't have to be any longer than that, because tension is the key here. So we'll shorten that up a little bit, just like this. That's going to be more than enough right there, so we'll take our knife and we'll cut that off, just like that. We'll burn that end real quick, and then we can tie any knot that we choose in the end of that paracord that's not going to come undone. I prefer a fisherman style type knot, so I'm just going to take this piece off just like this. I'm going to come over here and tie a knot on this side over the line like this with a little bit of a tag. Do the same thing over here, tie this line to this line with a little bit of a tag, and that is a fisherman's type knot, or a necklace knot, so when you pull the knots together they bind against each other. Put that over the top just like this, and then all you need to do is twist this like this, and that will create the tension that you need to tighten the saw. So we'll just turn that over until it tightens up, and it may stretch out on you the first time. Make sure that you get these fairly even. About an inch down from the top on both sides is plenty. Keep twisting that until it's nice and tight, or as tight as you feel it needs to be, just like this. And then it toggles against this side to hold tension. So now you have a very robust type bucksaw. It's not going to flop around on you. It's not going to move side to side, and it's going to be good and solid. Tighten that thing up. Don't be afraid of it. Paracord's got a lot of stretch value to it. Now, there's a lot of things that you can do from here to fancy this thing up. You can carve that toggle down a little bit like I did this one to make it look a little bit more eye-pleasing. You can take a little bit off the sides of these uprights on the corners and smooth them out a little bit for better hand grip. And you can do the same thing to the top to make it match. You can take a notch out of these two corners like I did here to hold that paracord in place better and make it look like this. And at this point you've got a saw that is multifunctional in the fact that you can use multiple blades on it, or different types of blades depending on the wood that you're cutting. Okay, so here's a piece of dry oak about 3 inches in diameter. We'll get off to the side of it here a little bit. And remember, this is the dry saw blade, or the dry wood blade. Alright guys, well I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me here today for this short video on how to make a collapsible bucksaw at home on the cheap. It's a very easy project. It's a fun project. It teaches you a little bit about woodworking, making mortise and tenon joints, things like that. I would encourage you to try a project like this with your youngin'. I thank you for all your support and your views. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our instructors, sponsors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.